Welcome to the Creation for Liberation podcast, Kiran, aka Madam Gandhi.
It's my great pleasure to be here. Thank you, Chetna.
Okay, so jumping right into it, what would you say are maybe 1 to 3 people or situations or experiences in your life that come to mind and heart now that have contributed to who you are today?
I love this question. I'm answering it differently because before you said it was a past question of like people in the past who've contributed to who I am today. I thought you were going to ask me just 3 people who are positively influencing me right now. And so I'm going to answer that question. Permission?
Yes.
Awesome. My partner immediately comes to mind. I've been with Lizzie for maybe a year and a half. We've known each other for a few years. We met on a boxing commercial in London, and I was like cast as the Adidas boxer and drummer. And they cast a male boxing coach, and I was like, "Oh, can you cast a female boxing coach just because it's an opportunity to show something different?" And women are really stepping into the ring these days in big numbers. And so they cast Leslie, who, was on the Olympic selection team in England in 2012. She's a gold medalist. And we just were like good friends from afar, and then ended up getting together last year. And, I've been in many different relationships. We've, been in all types of different dynamics. And I feel, when you ask me that question, I feel very grateful to have a partnership and a dynamic where all the sides of me are able to be present in different moments. So when I'm really having a tough time, it can be a container. When I'm having a win, it's a container. When I'm wanting to get better at something and be vulnerable about that, it's a container. And even, when we think about queerness, one of the reasons why I've always enjoyed being in a queer dynamic is that I feel it's very important for me to express my androgyny. I feel like sometimes I want to be super in my feminine and I'm really desiring like masculine energy. Other times I'm super in my masculine. Even last night I was joking with Lizzie and I was like, I'm so glad that I get to be your boyfriend. Like it's fun to just be playfully, in all the different dynamics. And then, something else we spoke about recently was like, I remember telling her, I was like, I need to be able to get mad at you and like know that you're not going to crumble or like then get mad at me later for getting mad at you. And I'm like, because actually what I'm working through are things that have nothing to do with you. And so me getting mad at you is actually not, I don't think that you're the problem. It's like you're helping me pull these darker emotions out into the surface so I can just fully release them and bury them and like express my rage. And actually, you might be representing like a voice in my own head or a trauma from the past that's like holding me back. And I just want to like get mad at you and know that it's not you and just release it. And it was a really profound and helpful exercise, and I feel grateful to like build trust, where you can just be fully in it with somebody. So, just shouts out to my partnership. I think like partners don't get enough credit these days, and I'm just like very grateful to this person in my life. And then, it's funny, the other 2 people, I actually am going to shout out Deepak Chopra and Oprah Winfrey, because like for the past 4 years I do their morning meditations religiously. Like I won't miss a day. And it just is such a helpful reset for me to retrain my own mind around my own, again, darker emotions, negative self-talk. Like I feel like every day I'm actively reprogramming so that I'm starting the day positive. And Chetna, I watch how we all have, like, for any of us who are like having to combat these emotions, like sometimes I'm like, man, it's ridiculous how much work this takes. But the truth is that it's effective. And for someone like myself, where I want to keep stepping into my power and purpose, you have to like take responsibility for your own self-rhetoric so that you're showing up with kindness rather than moodiness, or you're alchemizing darkness into light before you go out into the world and deal with other people's trauma. You're actually protected against it. So long answer, but those are my 3 people for the positive in the now.
Beautiful. Thank you for grounding that question into the present and honoring your relationship, let alone your queer relationship, where you could be your androgynous self and express and also be with, you mentioned being able to be mad in your relationship. Can you share more about this? Because I think this ties to emotional intelligence, expressing the spectrum of our humanity, what it means to be a femme or just a human being with anger, rage, madness in some of our closest relationships. How do you do that in a way that is honoring of your feelings and honoring of your relationship? Because there's a fine line between anger and rage and aggression. And a
Of
lot of
course.
times societally, I believe, and I've witnessed people conflating the two, but it's
Yes, I agree.
not necessarily the fact, right? So how do
Yes.
you do so in a way that's in practice of health?
Yeah. One thing that I feel very grateful for in my partnership is the ability to separate when what there is bad behavior and we need to actually like check the other partner gently and be like, hey, that really hurt me, or that tone wasn't nice, or I don't agree with what you're saying and it's making me feel bad, or hey, you said you were going to do this thing and then you didn't, right? So that's, you could say like that's somebody else, doing something, and you're asking them, hey, can you not do this thing because it's negatively impacting me? So that's, you have to be able to have an open dialogue with your partner where those gentle requests can be made with all the love in your heart, and with the assumption that the other person cares for you, and that if you make them aware of something, they weren't trying to be hurtful, and now that you've made them aware, they might make a different choice. And I try to model that. If I'm if Leslie's upset about something, I always try to be like, okay, listen, you can always make me aware of something that I didn't mean to do. I never want to be the source of your upset. It's my joy to improve my behavior, because if you're giving me this feedback, it's likely going to help me in other areas, so so feel free to tell me. Then and then the other side of it is when it's actually it's definitely not the other person, it's definitely you, and you're projecting, right? And I think people avoid projecting, or they call each other out, but actually it's like a really beautiful space to learn. So projecting means like, I'm upset about something and you've illuminated this thing that's like really heavy and upsetting for me. And actually, there's an opportunity here, because if I don't address it now, it's going to keep coming up. For me, I would say my self-confidence has been tested since I was a kid. Just the negative voices of like, you're not good enough, you're not worthy of this kind of love, not deserving, whatever's like the negative voices that even when I say them out loud, I don't believe them, but they linger from some experiences that either the world teaches us as brown-bodied people or females, or, you know, whatever. Who knows where these terrible things come from? And so if my partner is doing something that brings up those voices louder, it gives me the opportunity to be like, I'm so mad that this still exists. And I want to like be angry and let the emotion flood. And that's sort of the healing opportunity, in my opinion. And if you engage your partner in on it, they can actually be the support system rather than feeling like they're taking unnecessary punishment that doesn't belong to them.
Yeah. Yeah, thank you for this reframe on the opportunity that projection gives us, especially when we recognize it's projection.
No, you have to. That it doesn't work unless you own it. You have to
Right.
own it. And then of course, as people who bleed, you also have to be super aware of your own cycles, your own PMDD or your own PMS, how your mood is, yeah, and your confidence is fluctuating, your desire is fluctuating, and how your partner's desire is fluctuating. And I think again, that's something that we really had to grow into with each other. But now we hold space for it because we can be an ally for each other during those moments rather than being like, I'm leaving, you're being terrible. It's like, maybe that was really rude. And I know that you're going through it and I love you so much. And like, what do you need? It actually can make it lighter
Mhm.
instead of this like dramatic, heavy thing.
Right. Yeah, I'll add to that also, as I've discovered for myself recently, being aware of the cycles of the moon. Oh my goodness.
Exactly. Well said. Well said.
Yeah.
100%.
Oof. Yeah, that's something that it took me 36 years to acknowledge that, like, oh, okay, the
Yeah.
cycles
That
of
our
the
cycle is
moon,
tied to the moon. It's profound.
right, impacts my mood. But what you're talking about requires both parties to, one, be aware of any projection that's happening, to own it, and then to not take it personally, and to not take someone else's anger or feelings
Yes.
personally. Yeah.
We don't, it's hard to admit to your partner if you feel like you're projecting or that it's your own trauma or darkness, if you feel that they are going to then use it against you down the line. And I think that's another thing that both of us like really make sure to take a lot of care around, which is like, if I'm expressing that something's really hard for me or that I have an insecurity, most of us don't express those in our intimate partnerships because we're afraid that when we're down and out, those things are then going to be used against us. But the whole healing journey is that actually you heal these insecurities so that it doesn't actually matter what somebody else says and that you end up being fine. So
Yeah.
I think in my dynamic, we try our best to lead with the underlying assumptions, which is that I love you so much. It's my great joy to care for you. It's my great joy to learn how to care for you. It's my great joy to be that space where you can just say everything, the mess of thoughts that are on the mind, and have us talk about it. And I always appreciate when Leslie's like, you're the Taurus whisperer, because she's a Taurus. And I don't want us to have to like not talk for 5 days because we're fighting. I'm like, let's just come back, because ultimately I love you and I don't want you to carry this alone. And vice versa. If I'm upset, I want her to engage me and be like, pull it out of me. And she does. And I appreciate that. But it takes time to learn your partner, and there has to be that trust. And I think we're still building. And then we also both speak positively in the fight, which I also really appreciate. I'll be like, this is an opportunity. Well, like, we're gonna learn something. Like, the deeper we go into our pain, like the better we come out on the other side. And she'll be like, I don't think talking is available to us right now. And I'm like, no, but it is. And then I've also learned like to actually allow space as is needed as well. So yeah, I think as long as you bring things to completion and you don't let things linger, you actually can like have fun with it and not have it be like a heaviness that keeps accumulating.
That's an important piece, bringing to completion. And I just want to normalize this, especially if there's a tendency for folks listening to bring things up again. It means that it was not completed.
Well said.
That's what it means. And sometimes the completion is like a spiraling upward of, okay, we thought we were complete. Oh, this triggered something again, and it needs to be complete again. And then each person has to make the choice as to whether they want to keep doing the completions and whose responsibility it is to complete. Though, yes, completion looks like many different things across time. But Kiran, how do you access that like wise, sagely voice in a fight where you're like, this is an opportunity, you're in growth mindset as you're fighting?
It's so funny because I don't want to feel these icky, terrible feelings. And I definitely don't want to feel them with my loved one, my beloved. I want to feel cool and I want to feel good. And I think optimism helps. And I also deeply trust Leslie because we always get out of it. We always come out like joyful. And, but the point of completion, you can tell when you've reached completion when both people are light again. And there's like a gentle sense of like touch again, or humor, or sweetness, or you can like gently shift the conversation into the next thing. There's like a kind of release moment, an aha moment. And what I have learned in relationships, especially this dynamic, is that as much as you can go first, even when it's hard, try to go first, which is like I'm wanting you to understand me. Clearly you want me to understand you. So this is a roadblock. So one of us has to decide who's going to go first and actually step into the other person's body and see out of their eyes. And I won't do it until it's authentic. I won't just say like, I'm sorry, because the person can feel it if you don't mean it.
Yeah.
But ultimately, if you love somebody, real love and like high vibrational self is like, okay, fine, no problem. Let me see what you're saying. And then I'd be like, you're so right. I can understand how this would be incredibly rude. I can understand how that was incredibly insensitive. I'm so sorry. I was lacking awareness in the moment. And like, it's my joy to love you properly. And I don't want to love you badly. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I love you so much. I'm sorry. And so then it softens it and it makes the conversation more like, fluid. And then I was also going to say too, one thing that I learned is that the person who's more traumatized or triggered, they get care first. So let's say I'm the one who's upset. Then gently both people like address my needs first, because I'm more in the sort of trauma zone of my emotions. I need to come back. If she's upset more than I am, or the thing is about her feelings, then she gets care first. It doesn't mean that I don't say my feelings about it, but we make sure that she's okay first. And then, if I have anything to share, I'll ask for it. Yeah. So these are the different ways. But yeah, I think the underlying, I don't think we like conflict. It doesn't feel nice to hold on to stuff. And most of us hold on and we want the other person to understand us and do the work. And it's like, just model the very behavior that you seek. This is your higher God energy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think holding on to stuff comes from such a primal need for survival and protection, and feeling, well said. Sometimes it feels safe to hold on to stuff as a way to avoid that stuff in this weird paradoxical way that humans tend to work. So if you feel safe in the relationship overall through these underlying tensions that you've mentioned that are so beautiful, that are really like the why, the purpose, the truth among the like, the weather patterns that happen in any relationship, like the grounding truth is what you've said a few times here, that It's my great joy to care for you. I'd love for you to say it again, just so that the listeners can hear it, because it's really beautiful. Please.
Yeah, it's my great joy to love you. It's my great joy to care for you. It's my great joy to make sure that you're feeling good. I love you so much. I never want to be the source of your upset. I'm also learning. I also make mistakes. I also didn't know that this is the kind of thing that doesn't make you feel good. I'm here to learn. Like just tell me, and it may not be an immediate switch. I may do it again and again, but it's not because I'm going out of my way to hurt you. It's because I'm still learning you. We still in each other's lives. It's relatively new, but the desire is there, and you can tell me anything. And vice versa. I have to say, like, Leslie really, I always feel like I stay asking for what I need, and most, like, I have to give Leslie like full credit. She's like, okay, sure, like she gives it. I'm like, I feel needy, like I want attention. I just fucking say it, and if she doesn't feel like giving it to me, she won't. But I have to say, most of the time, she's like, I mean, I'll be like, please flirt with me. She'll be like, this is so dumb. Like, okay, I will. I don't know. I because that's the truth. I might have my own moments of anxious attachment flare up, and instead of me being like, this is stupid, of course she loves you, like, chill out, I just fucking ask, and she gives it. Yeah.
That's an art, to be able to ask for what you need, right? I mean, there are folks out here and with so much love and compassion for this practice of like learning how to ask for our needs. So what would you like to offer those folks who are like, bro, it's hard for me to ask for what I need? Maybe because
It's super hard.
their needs were not met when they've asked, right?
100%.
Their needs
Of
have
course,
been.
because what happens is this: most of the time we ask for a need, and then the other person makes it about them. And then they're like, what do you mean? I tell you I love you all the time. Like, what do you mean? Yesterday, and then on Wednesday, and then on September 21st, I told you that you're beautiful. So, like, what's the issue? Do you know what I mean? So, like, then it becomes about the wrong thing. But if you can own it, and you can be like, I know you told me 6 minutes ago how beautiful that you think I am, but I'm having a really tough time with my own insecure dialogue. Can you please hold me and tell me that one more time? If you own it and you set them up to win and engage them in something that is challenging for you, that's partnership. You're not requiring them to fill you up. You're saying, listen, if you're available and interested, I have a need. And if you want to help me with that need, it could be really nice.
Yeah. Yeah. Beautiful. There's such a consent to it. There is such an embodied practice of that. It is my great joy to care for you and to learn how to care for you through your teaching, in a way, because we are teaching how to care for, we're teaching other people how to care for us through asking for our needs. That's all data for them. That's beautiful.
I actually really appreciate that we're talking about queer relationship dynamics and just relationship dynamics generally speaking, because I actually feel like that's still a fairly limited resource in our community. I feel grateful for the space to talk about it and share. I feel particularly grateful for the dynamic that I'm currently in. And then also in terms of needs, there has to be, I mean, even Leslie and I talked about this week, there has to be a baseline desire to also be meeting your own needs, to be aware that something is challenging and that you're, intentionally wanting to find healing. And also that you're not fully relying on the other person to make it better, let's say.
Yeah.
So as long as both parties are showing a desire to like not want to come fully depleted to the relationship, and you're coming with like, listen, I'm doing my best to do my yoga, my meditation, walk in purpose, take out the substances, eat right, sleep on time, like the basics, drink water. And the voices are like particularly loud this week, and my mood is up and down, then it actually gives the space for the partner to rise into an opportunity to win, rather than feeling like you're not self-aware and you're taking everything out on them and you're not owning it.
Oof. Just want to like amplify what you just said here. In
Please.
giving your partner an opportunity to rise up into whatever it is that
the
you're
win. Yeah, the win, the ask. Yeah.
Yes. Because there's something about like asking for your needs is, yes, trying to get a need of yours met. It's also giving the gift of opportunity to give to someone else. Giving feels good for all of us. We love to give, right?
100%.
And we can't.
It's like such an easy switch. I love this. I'm so happy. Yeah. Thank you for facilitating the healthy reframe. This is so good. Because I think the idea is like, if I say to somebody, you didn't do this, and then you didn't do this, and then you didn't do this, it doesn't make them like instantly want to like love you better. It makes them feel like, okay, well, you just pushed me away, and then you pushed me away some more, and now you push me away again. And I thought I was like loving you beautifully. But this, you can do the same thing, which is like, it feels really good when you tell me this. It feels really good when you da da da.
Yeah.
And I'm having a particularly, needy moment, can you be there? It's funny though, because everyone is different. Like I'm sharing this out loud, and it's for somebody who meeting those needs is not easy or desirable. They'll be like, this relationship sounds draining, right? Like that's why we're attracted to different people. Like
Right.
the
Yeah.
right person for you is like, okay, cool. Yeah, no problem. That's so easy for me, right? So it's also okay to like love yourself enough to be like, I understand that my needs when I'm having a tough time, it takes a special person to meet those needs. But I also understand that I give a lot. So it's my joy to give and then vulnerably ask for what is challenging for me. I
Right.
think that used to be a huge source of shame for me. And so then it robs you of real intimacy.
Mm, yeah, I'm sure a lot of people, I can certainly relate. And I'm sure a lot of people will relate based on conversations I've had with listeners, that it can cause a lot of shame if you are asking a misaligned person to meet your needs
Yes.
who just doesn't have the
Yes.
capacity. No shame,
Yes.
no wrongness on their part. It's
Exactly.
just misaligned.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes.
No,
And I actually respect their communication is there because I respect Leslie. She'll be like, listen, I really don't have it. That doesn't mean
yeah.
that doesn't hurt. Of course, if you feel rejected, but ultimately they're saving you because they're like, listen, like the shop's not open today. I love you so much, and like figure it out. And no matter what, it's a net win because if your person is not doing that for you, no matter what, it always forces you to go back to the drawing board and have to like take care of your own mental health, which is always going to be a net positive. If you can have a special someone in your life, listen, life is sweeter, it's more smooth, it's more beautiful. We're not meant to live this life alone. And if they're not the person that day or they themselves are challenged with their own needs, it's an opportunity to go and tap in with friends or meet your own mental health needs. It's a good thing.
Yeah, it sounds like healthy boundaries. And if
Mm-hmm.
someone is not available, your partner, for example, is not available to meet your needs, it invites us to expand um, both our own self-compassion and also reaching out to other people. I think in this Western culture and individualist culture, partnership is often looked at as like best friend, partner, life partner, collaborator, like all the therapists, like all the things.
All in
And
one. Yeah.
there's
Yeah.
lots of other people that could actually meet our needs.
Totally.
So let's lead more
And
on
and
that.
yes, I love this. And if your partner is telling you that they don't have it, like it also might be your chance to be like, oh my God, I had no idea. I was like suffering in my own mind. Like I didn't realize that you were also going through it. Like I'm here. Let's talk about you, and then that actually just creates like even more of an opportunity for intimacy and for you to show up rather than feeling stuck. So, I've been feeling very grateful to have a place to practice these beautiful life lessons and how to show up, and everything that I practice in my relationship dynamic, I feel like we both go out and embody in the world with different people, and I think that's just a huge opportunity.
You've already spoken to part of this, but uh, some of your practices that allow you to stay on your path of purpose in the world.
Mm,
Share more about what's been most alive or in service to you, your well-being, checking yourself emotionally before you go out into the world, sharing from
mm.
parts of you that you want to be sharing. What are some of those practices lately?
Every morning I start the day, I make my bed, I do all of that, but I start the day with my morning meditation. And I enjoy making a matcha. I appreciate the ritual ceremony of it because it takes a minute. It's not like a quick coffee. It requires your involvement. Like even a coffee maker, you press on and the machine does it itself. But matcha is one of those age-old things that a machine cannot make it because you have to take the whisk, you have to strain the green tea leaves, you have to steam the water, like all these different things. And you just steam the milk and boil the water. And the process of making a matcha is just a little moment of self-love in the morning, self respect, discipline, showing up. I then will sit for 10-20 minutes and do a meditation. Most days I've been doing the morning pages, which last week I was not doing, because I was not next to my backpack that has the journal. I was like off in the studio. And it was really interesting because I noticed how important that practice is for me in the morning. And from a creator standpoint, it's usually to get the juices going. But what I actually learned by taking it away is that what it does is it allows me to connect to myself for 10 minutes in the morning. And the reason why this is important is that if I'm disconnected from myself, then I watch how I'm particularly needing things externally. I'm wanting things from Instagram that never have anything to give. I'm wanting things from my outside energy. I might be eating badly that day. Like, it's very profound how now more than ever we have to connect to ourselves, because everything is trying to distract us and take us away from ourselves and rob us of our self-worth and value. And so sometimes I laugh because I'm like, damn, like it takes so much work just to keep the mind right. But you have to understand that there's so much happening externally to make sure that we are living unstable. We are living distracted. We are living constantly being told that we need something outside, that the next person has it better, that you're not good enough. Every messaging from the minute we step outside the door is you are not good enough. Therefore, buy this thing. And that takes its toll. So even though I find it quite funny that I do quite a bit of self, awareness ritual in the morning and self connection ritual, it's because every day that I spend on Instagram or stepping out into the world, it's going to negate that effort. So we have to keep making sure we're pouring into the cup.
Absolutely. I'm going to ask a question that's for me.
I'm here.
Speaking of like androgyny and getting back to ourselves and showing up in the world as ourselves, the selves that we want to be, not the ones that we were told we should be. So I was born in South Africa. That's where most of my extended family lives. And I went back there earlier this year. It was beautiful. Got to spend some quality time with my grandparents and cousins. Though the gender roles there are so rigid and so binary. And being in it, immersed for almost 3 months, really, I noticed it getting to me. Like everything where I was starting to be like, wow, I really feel different, even just with my hairstyle or how I want to dress or how I look at certain things.
It's challenging.
And I would like pop on Instagram and go to folks like you and others that are just living it out loud, just as a way to come back to like what I align with and representation. So thank you for that, for being that. Shoot. Yeah, it's so real. But tell me and the people, like, how do you fortify yourself? Of course, it requires being in partnerships and relationships that fortify you in your androgyny, that allow you to be your full self. But what else might you want to share around that? Being more of your
I'll share something profound with you. I'll share this with you.
Yes.
Which is that people feel excluded when you express yourself, because oftentimes they are not expressing themselves. So they feel immediately threatened. And it's interesting because we experience it as oppression. We experience it as they're making me feel bad for my color, my queerness, my music, my choices. But ultimately, that oppression is coming because that person chose to participate in some external norm that's not necessarily good for us, but they chose to participate in it to their detriment. And so an evolved person, a conscious person, might actually say, listen, thank you for showing me what's possible. Yeah. I'm jealous of you, and thank you for showing me what's possible. You've lit up something inside me. You've inspired me. That's the best case scenario when we see somebody who's different from ourselves, who's expressing themselves on a big way. Thank you for showing me what's possible, and in both directions. And we have to remember that by shining our light, hopefully for all of those people who feel triggered, there's a few people who are like, oh, thank you. This is so refreshing. Thank you for reminding me what's possible. And then the second thing I'll say is that I also try to not be inaccessible in my self-expression. It's one thing to be bold and brave and have my hair be yellow and my clothing be whatever it is. But I've been around people who express themselves that way, and their energy is cold and they're not emotionally available, and they're too cool, and they're taking up space without being aware that there are other people in the room. And actually, I don't want my self-expression to encourage quietness in order to uplift me at the expense of somebody else. So in my self-expression, I also try to be mindful. How do I make eye contact when I'm buying something from somebody? How do I have a thoughtful conversation if somebody is driving me locally? How can I engage meaningfully with presence, with giving the other person the space to step into their own self-expression? Because ultimately, it's a two-part. This is true leadership. You have to express yourself, but then also, can you be the vessel to encourage somebody else to step into their own light? This is really where the opportunity lies.
Yeah, that's power for the highest good. And I'm so glad you brought that up, because I too have been with folks that are big in a way that actually snuffs out the energy in the room as opposed to shares it. And I think I've also witnessed in this culture, being the United States, and what fame and what power and influence and personality can look like, which is also what's happening with this like whole narcissistic trend that has emerged over the last few years. Like, that's pedestalized deeply.
I fully agree. It's affirmed. Yeah.
It is affirmed, it's reinforced, it's perpetuated, it's like, it's looked at as like the way to be. So
Yes.
please share your perspective on, disrupting that. You've already shared how you are disrupting that, but anything more around being an emotionally intelligent leader, sharing the light, uplifting people around you, even as you are living bigly and boldly and fully.
I think it's important for us to play to our strengths of what comes naturally. I enjoy emotional intelligence. I love talking to my friends and hearing a conflict they have at work or in their relationship or with their parents or with a family member, and being the source of lubrication and softness and gentleness. And can you go first? And what aspects of this can you control? And can you do better? And a lot of times people misunderstand that, like, no, this other person is the oppressor. Why are you now putting the burden on me? It's their problem. I think it's 100% true. I'm not denying that there are problematic external circumstances. And if we are choosing consciously to continue to show up for that circumstance because we enjoy the work that we're doing and that person is at work, or we enjoy living in the society we live in and something in the society is what's oppressing us, the radical opportunity is to take the leadership and control back into your own hands and say, how can I make this better? And can I take a different pair of goggles on and see the situation through a different perspective that actually allows me to participate in it in a way that's not detrimental? Ultimately, any of the great teachers will teach you about love, compassion, empathy. Could it be that this person's bad behavior came from something that was terrible for them? Could it be that both of you made an agreement in a past life that this person is going to teach you a really challenging, amazing lesson, and it's going to hurt and be so annoying, but you're going to be a better human because of it? Could it be possible that while you working on this situation, something magical unlocks in your life that would have never been possible had this particular arrangement not been there? So with the emotional intelligence stuff, I light up when I talk about it. It's interesting to me. I can talk about it forever. And so I do. For a lot of people, it's draining. And so I think we all have to realize, okay, a little bit of learning all these different things only helps us. And it's okay for us to just intuitively play to our strengths and talk about things that genuinely light us up.
Well, I really appreciated you saying how someone's quote unquote bad behavior might come from some trauma or wounding or something that has them be a certain way or expressed in a certain way that is looked at as bad, quote unquote. I'm using that in quotes just because
exactly. It's not a judgment. It's about how about this? It's that their behavior has a negative ramification on our own life.
Yes. Yes. Great. And I'm thinking about your single bad habits and as it relates to daily choices and practices that keep you on the path of purpose. And
yeah,
I'd love to ask you more about that, and also just add how I see bad habits in quotes again, like as strategies that we employ to meet our needs, even though it has a negative impact on us and potentially the people we care about in the world at large. And I work with a lot of folks who come with bad habits around like smoking,
of course,
or eating spicy chips. That's one of my bad habits.
I love it.
Right.
I love it.
or all, you know, all the ways in which we're doing something, we're very disciplined towards something that isn't ideal for us because it's fulfilling some kind of deep need.
Mm.
And I've seen time and again how smoking, for example, is tied very spiritually to like mother wound and that act of bringing something to mouth
Mm.
for
Oh,
sustenance, for
wow.
nourishment, for soothing, for
Wow.
regulation, and for connection, because it almost feels so accessible and easy. Where
Wow.
connecting with humans are not that easy. It's uncontrollable,
Wow.
unpredictable. So it's tied so much to mother wound. And when we can do some work around mother wound and self-mothering,
Mm.
suddenly smoking a cigarette is irrelevant and the body rejects it. So these habits
Mm.
come from, yeah, like such a place of just wanting to like care for ourselves in the best way that we
Mm.
know how.
This is so profound what you're saying. It really checks out when I like reflect on folks who in my life are smokers. Like I feel like that really makes a lot of sense. That's really profound. Thank you for that. And it gives us all an opportunity to ask, why is it the habits that we have, you know?
Yeah, exactly.
I There's so much, you know, all my bad habits have got to go, you know, all my bad habits have got to go. I that was a lyric in a verse. And then someone who I was working with at the time, who was John Legend's manager, she was the one who was like, whoa, like the way you delivered that lyric, the sincerity of it was so strong. That's the chorus. Like, I just need to hear that on loop. That's the chorus. Even saying it right now, I have goosebumps. And so when you're writing music, music is an audio timestamp of emotion, and that's how we make the best songs. We find where does the sincerity of the delivery for the artist live, and how do we amplify that, because that's what people are going to feel and resonate. And it's the reason why a song like Bad Habits, you don't have to speak English to understand that hopeful, aspirational, joyful, uplifting sentiment of, I want my life to be deeper and more profound and with magnitude of joy and expansion and self-expression. These are delicious qualities that I too want to participate in. It's the reason why I end my shows with Bad Habits.
Mm.
And then personally on the journey, exactly what you're saying is correct, that when we have a need, let's say, or a want, a desire, oftentimes it comes from a lack where something was not met along the way, emotional challenges. And for me, it would be eating badly, or yeah, have a drink, why not? But then it's 2 drinks, and it's 3 drinks, and it's four. Then okay, now the next day I'm off duty because I'm getting up late and I have a hangover, you know, or people wanting to perform after smoking a bunch of weed, you know, all these different things. It's like, these are okay lubricants. I'm grateful that we can eat sweets when we have a period. I'm grateful that we can have all of these lubricants. I think it's noticing when there's an opportunity to transcend and actually just address the root cause and meet the need in a much deeper way. And for me, it's been a lot of meditation. It's been a lot of spirituality. It's actually, I had to cut out everything. To this day, I've just fully let go of alcohol for the rest of my life. It's just done. It's been 3 years now. I'm fully plant-based. I appreciate, from an empathy standpoint, that just felt better. And then also, I don't, you know, I actually don't necessarily think we're all meant to be vegans and that no one is an omnivore. I think there's a reason why we can eat meat and that it's enjoyable. I think the way that we've had to meet the capitalist demands of meat has become quite upsetting. And so that for me is the biggest lane. When I see the way animals and living creatures are treated, it doesn't make me feel nice. Again, I don't get on a pedestal and talk about these things telling other people how to be. The real opportunity is when I'm out of alignment and I start eating badly. I wake up and 6 months later, I'm 15, 20 pounds heavier because I'm not managing it, you know, and I don't want to have to be on these up and down spirals and yo-yo. I want to address the root cause so that I'm free from that. Ultimately, for me, I'm seeking great freedom, great depth, great meaning, great purpose, great joy. And I want to understand my deeper pain as an opportunity, because the deeper I go into the pain, in the equal and opposite direction is my joy, is my happiness, is my peace of mind, is my ability to sleep calmly at night without anxiety. So that's why I've taken out all the bad habits, because when you take them out and you're like, well, I'm not going back, you can't have a drink to numb out. You can't have a smoke to distract yourself. You can't have bad food because now you fully vegan, gluten free, no alcohol, no coffee, no weed, no nothing, you know. There's just no option to fully derail. not that you can't eat badly, gluten-free vegan, there's plenty of treats and all that now, but I think the point is I had to create restriction in my life and discipline so that it forced me to address my deeper pain. And that's been a huge source of joy for me on the journey.
Mm. Oh, we could have a whole ass podcast on just parts of what you just said around eliminating things that distract or lubricate away from the deeper root stuff. But I'm hearing a theme here around like really getting to the deeper needs underneath all the other stuff. And then also the discipline and devotion and self-respect of restraint or
Yes,
containment.
yes. Self-respect does come from what are you doing when no one's around? If you couldn't tell anybody that you worked out this morning, if you couldn't tell anybody that you meditate every day, if you couldn't tell anybody that you eat right, whatever, would you still do it? Like that's real self-respect because it's genuinely for you to show up how you want to show up in the world rather than, to be impressive to somebody else and get your external accolades that way. And I was going to say too, if you think of a bowling alley, they can put up the bumpers on either side so that when you throw the ball down the alley, hopefully you're going to knock down some pins no matter, and you're not going to get a gutter. And that's how I think about these restrictions that I've placed on my own choices. No matter what, when I'm spiraling, let's say, and my emotions are out of order and I'm finding a tough time to come back, I'm not leaning on these things that really could get out of hand. I'm having to make a different choice. And I think what used to take me 6 months or a year to kind of recover and come back and learn the lesson now takes me days, hours, because you don't spiral so far off in the wrong direction. That's not always the truth for everybody. I see this a lot with musicians, though. I think all the musicians are there just trying to heal their childhood trauma like the rest of us.
Artists.
So this is why I've made, the artists. Yeah. So that's why I've made this choice for myself.
I love that metaphor. Yeah. Of the bumpers. When you were talking about the sincerity in which you were singing your lyric of Bad Habits and hearing earlier that you are a Pisces, it just struck me the sentence in my mind that popped up was emotions are currency. Like you are using your emotions. Yeah. To like
so
make
true.
your music. It's true. It is true.
And then feed myself. This is so profound. Yeah, I mean, that's such a funny thing to say because obviously we have emotions for days and emotions for abundance, all the good emotions, all the bad emotions, all the emotions that make it tough to get up out of bed in the morning or, show up in the world. But I've found, and this is something that I talk about with my partner a lot, that she always affirms for me that I really appreciate, which is that sometimes I'll be in a mood or my confidence is low, but I still have to give a talk that day in front of like thousands of people, or I still have to mentor young students. And if you don't feel that you have your self-worth that day and other people are affirming you, it's really hard to receive it. You have to believe it yourself. And so the ways that I try to come back to myself are through these self-discipline practices, doing a meditation, showing up on time, showing up with respect, showing up in clothing that makes me feel empowered and beautiful and strong. But what I was going to say is that the work is the healing. So the second that I step on stage, even though I might have not had an emotionally strong day that day, by being on the stage, that sets my whole day back on course because I'm now in purpose. Now I'm giving my medicine. I'm speaking, I'm singing, I'm doing what I'm meant to be doing on the planet. And so sometimes also like our past selves save our present selves by being like, girl, you're good. Like be in service and you're going to feel good. Give in order to come back to yourself.
Yeah. I'm sort of seeing a full circle moment here around just like the underlying purpose, the underlying intentions of it is my great joy to give you care. It is my great joy to learn how to give you care, whether it be with a partner or on a stage in front of 1,000 people. Like going back to that can sustain just the like oceans of like feelings that are flowing past day to day. And that even though it's currency and can inform purpose, inform how we move forward, there's still that like, the fundamental purpose that wants us.
Thank you for that. You're really good at taking these long answers that I give you and really making them something we can digest. Thank you for that.
It's inspiring. Thank you. Kiran, as we close here for now, what's alive on your heart that you want to offer to the people in this moment every day?
I mean, one thing I will say is come join me in November because we're touring, right? Up and down the East Coast, up and down the West Coast. So wherever you're listening from, I would love for you to come be in the live show with me. Come dance, come listen to some of the opening acts. I have my sax player with me. I'm launching a bunch of electronics, and then I have my drummer. It's a very feminine, strong show, and it's the show of my dreams that I've always wanted to watch. Now I'm just being it, which I think a lot of women have had to be strong in their masculine. I'm really attracted to people who are strong in their feminine. We're lacking what it even looks like to be a strong feminine character, because I think right now it just looks like super tomboyish, and it's not that. It's like this kind of divine maternal feminine queen-like strength. And it's interesting because I actually think a lot about the drag and the trans community for stepping into their mother feminine so strong, that actually teaches all of the cis women, what does that look like for us to come into our feminine, when so many cis women have been taught to masculinize in order to fit in. You have gay men and trans women really stepping into that kind of queen energy, and it's refreshing. So I'll leave you with that. I'm present always to what a feminine future looks like, a feminine economy looks like, feminine strength, kindness, high vibrational values that we can all learn regardless of our gender. And I hope that some of the folks listening to the podcast will join us live in November.
Yes, I hope so too. Thank you so much, Kiran. I appreciate you so much. There's so much more that could be said.
I know.
But
you had plans for the call, but then we just went in the organic direction that Source needed us to go.
We followed the flow, the feminine flow. All right. Until next time.
Thank you.